to present the keynote speech of our presentations.
First of all, I'd like to commend High Representative Al Nasser and the Alliance of Civilizations. 12 years ago it was, I had the opportunity to participate in my first gathering of this international community and see the depth of your commitment to exploring media and information literacy as a means of countering mistrust, misunderstanding, and actually promoting global understanding. And also to you, Christina, for your leadership in the Department of Public Information. We've seen a tremendous growth in interest in media and information literacy all over the world. And that's partly because here at the UN and at the Alliance of Civilizations, there's been some early leadership that's fertilized the development of the global digital and media literacy and information literacy community. So I'm delighted to be here today. And what I'd like to do is I'll plan to talk for a little bit, and then I think we'll have a good dialogue. I'm just going to see if I can find my slides now. Where are they? That's not it. But there we go. I think that might be it. So let me introduce myself to you. The topic that I'm going to talk about today is really the focus of this event, educational strategies for the prevention of violent extremism. I'm a professor of communication studies at the University of Rhode Island, where I direct the Media Education Lab. Each year we host an annual week-long program for educators, librarians, and media professionals, the Summer Institute in Digital Literacy. And so really I can say that my area of expertise is really in teacher education in media and information literacy. Today, we are fully aware how rising inequality is contributing to increased political polarization, nationalism, violent extremism, and hate speech. And perhaps these challenges have seemed more and more profound. If we look at just last month, January of 2017, Wikipedia tells us there were 160 deaths due to terrorism just in January. So the growth of violent extremism all around the world, with white supremacy in North America, Boko Haram in Africa, Golden Dawn, ISIS and Al-Qaeda, violent extremism around the world, a focus on prevention at the global level seems right and just at this time. Certainly, we've seen that the coordinated use of social media by American white nationalist groups on Twitter has increased by 600% since 2012. So social media is a potent tool in the armament of violent extremists. In just 1 month, ISIL released 1,150 propaganda events, related videos, articles, photos, essays from 35 different production units. So online, we have a battle for hearts and minds going on in a very significant way around the world. Now, when it comes to defining violent extremism, well, we run into some challenges. Here's a definition. I like this definition. Violent extremism includes beliefs and actions of people who use illegal force or violence to achieve political, economic, ideological, religious, or political goals through fear, coercion, or intimidation. But it must be wondered by every one of us around the room. Who is a violent extremist? An ISIS fighter? An abortion clinic bomber? An alt-right neo-Nazi? An activist from China's Uyghur minority? A Black Lives Matter protester? Who is a violent extremist? Well, that depends on your point of view. In 1985, we called those Afghan fighting Soviet invasion, we called them freedom fighters. Today, we call them terrorists. So let's situate our discussion of violent extremism within a context that acknowledges that how we define it depends on where we sit, and our stakeholder positions shape our understanding of these practices. That being said, let's talk a little bit about how media and information literacy can prevent violent extremism. 3 points must be made to frame up the value of media and information literacy. First is the fundamental idea that media and information literacy involves questioning all forms of authority. Sometimes when people are asked they say, Renee, define media literacy for me. I say, well, it involves asking critical questions about what you watch, see, listen to, and read. Media literacy involves a critique of textual authority, that is, the representational objects we use to communicate. But by definition, it invites us to disrupt the text through alternative interpretations. In learning to critically read media messages, citizens develop their ability to gather accurate and relevant information about their society and to question authority, both textual authority and, by implication, institutional authority. So that idea of the power of questioning is at the heart of why media and information literacy is so fundamentally linked to the liberal arts and the practice of liberal learning. Media and information literacy has to be understood as a civic competency. Really, even as far back as 1985, Len Masterman, author of Teaching the Media, one of the earliest scholarly books about media literacy education, he noted that media education is an essential step in the long march toward a truly participatory democracy, and that widespread media literacy is essential if all citizens are to wield power, make rational decisions, become effective change agents, and have effective involvement with the media. So finally, media and information literacy encourages people to be agents of social change. Because when people have digital and media literacy competencies, they recognize personal, corporate, and political agendas. They're empowered to speak out on behalf of missing voices and omitted perspectives in our communities. By identifying and attempting to solve problems, people use their powerful voices and their rights under the law to improve the world around them. So these 3 foundational ideas drive the values of media and information literacy. When we're invited to explain the big theoretical ideas of media literacy, we often identify these key concepts. A media literate person recognizes that people interpret messages differently, depending on our cultural backgrounds and our life experiences, that we all might go to the same movie, but we have different interpretations of that movie because we're different as individuals. Media literate people recognize that messages are representations. They're not reality, right? They are representations of reality. And our ability to conflate the representation and the reality is a big challenge for us, right? We get confused by the symbol systems around us. But recognizing that messages are representations is premised on the idea that we recognize that messages use different codes and conventions because messages are constructed by people, right? And the ability to distinguish between a press release, a news story, propaganda, advertising, a blog post, recognizing how messages take different shapes and forms and use different codes and conventions really helps strengthen the processes of interpretation. Messages influence our attitudes and behaviors. Of course, that's why we're here at the United Nations, right? A belief that communication and information can change behavior, can affect attitudes, can lead to global understanding. And of course, a media literate person recognizes that messages have economic and political power, that they're constructed within a context where some voices and some ideas get a lot of attention, and other voices and other messages get very little. Because messages are constructed within a political economy. In this sense, the political economy of the mass media is being disrupted right now by the rise of social media and digital culture. And that's a very exciting but a very scary time as power hierarchies are being disrupted. Another way of thinking about media and digital literacy comes from our friends in the digital literacy community. I'm showing a slide right now from the work of Doug Belshaw. He says it's wise for us to think about digital and media and information literacy as a set of competencies that involve cultural competencies, cognitive competencies, constructive, being able to make media, communication competencies, but also the soft skills of being confident in your ideas, in using your creative skills, in that critical thinking component and that civic engagement. So as we've expanded the concept of literacy to include not just reading and writing, not just speaking and listening, but also layered onto that, these new competencies essential for success in 21st century culture. We feel like educators have a bigger and more interesting challenges than ever before. So in most of the scholarly literature, 6 criteria are identified in order for media and information literacy to thrive. There need to be curriculum standards and frameworks, teacher education and professional development, professional networks for information sharing, curricular resources, instructional strategies and materials, supportive implementation climate, and support for program evaluation and research on effectiveness. Because of the growth in the media and information literacy community, we are seeing some progress around the world on these elements, although their implementation varies from country to country. And there is it is very important to respect the diverse ways in which media and information literacy will look differently in different countries, depending on the education system, the media system, and the cultural climate. For today's talk, I'm only going to talk about this one slice. I'm only going to talk about curricular resources, instructional strategies, and materials, because in only 30 minutes or so, I can't address the whole big basket of challenges. So I want to talk about what instructional strategies are effective as media and information literacy may help prevent violent extremism. I'm going to talk about 5 strategies today about how educators are building awareness of media messages about violent extremism, how they're critically analyzing how violent extremism is presented in both entertainment and in nonfiction media, how they're helping learners to recognize propaganda and hate speech, how educators are using opportunities to help children and young people form authentic relationships with people from other countries, and how educators are helping learners to use the power of communication to speak out. Let's talk about the first one. Build awareness of media messages about violent extremism. I've posted here two slides from the Media Education Lab website of curriculum materials that we offer. You'll see on the left, we offer a workshop for Iranian youth with lesson plans to explore issues of identity and representation. And then we have also worked with elementary students who explore the representation of the people and cultures of the Middle East in media. This project with elementary students was inspired by my experience of going to the inaugural conference of the Alliance of Civilizations, and was very delighted to receive support from the Alliance and Jordi Torrent in developing that set of materials for elementary students. So here's a slide that just gives you a sense of what happens when you start talking about how Iranians are represented in mass media, for example. You instantly find yourself in conversation with students about stereotypes. What is a stereotype? How do stereotypes shape and limit our thinking? How are stereotypes represented through image, language, and sound? Here's a slide from another excellent curriculum developed by Project Look Sharp at Ithaca College in New York. A marvelous curriculum called Media Construction of the Middle East. And here's a lesson plan called Freedom Fighters or Terrorists, where students review Afghanistan's history. They understand the shifting historical context for U.S. views of the Mujahideen during the Cold War and after 9/11. They recognize the power of language to bias impressions, and they analyze credibility, bias, and truth in documentary films. What's marvelous about this curriculum is that the lesson plans are superbly designed, video clips available, and for, in this case, high school learners, this is this fits perfectly within the context of a world history class. So when teachers say, how do I make time for media and information literacy? You say, well, do you teach a course in global history? Because if you do, you can integrate media and information literacy right into that existing course. Now, Christina, you mentioned this topic. How do we help students to critically analyze how violent extremism is presented in fake news? And this is an enormously complex issue. We are just beginning to understand it. The term is what? Is it 2 months old or 4 months old? It's not been a very long time since we've been using it. And it's enormously complex. So in some ways, the challenge we face when we invite teachers to explore this topic is one of definition. In just the last 4 months, we've seen this term manipulated like crazy. So educators are going to need some time to figure out how to teach about it. And on the Twitter, we can see teachers are experimenting. Just last night, I hosted a Twitter chat with the International Literacy Association. Our topic was fake news and media literacy. So if you type in ILA chat into your Twitter, you'll see maybe about 60 or 70 teachers from all over the world having a conversation, trying to figure out how should we teach about fake news to high school students. The jury's out on that, though. I can't speak much about it because it's so new. But I can share with you some well-developed curriculum strategies for how teachers in high school and college have helped students to critically analyze how violent extremism is presented in entertainment media. Now, it probably doesn't even need to be noted that entertainment media is perhaps more influential than news media in shaping public perceptions of others. So educators can't ignore entertainment media. And if they only focus on news and information, they will be neglecting a really important influence, as entertainment media, video games, movies carry values about violent extremism that need to be critically interrogated. So for example here, let's have a mini lesson. I invite you to watch a short film clip, and I want you to be thinking, who is the hero? Who is the villain? Who is the victim? Let's watch.
I suggest you pay attention to what I have to say. For far too long, you've ignored what is happening around you. You've not seen the inevitable that is coming. You've not seen me until now.
London, a city under siege.
I want you to find who's responsible and stop him in whatever way you feel fit.
You would kill anyone you put in front of me.
We must rise up.
What have you got in mind?
A test of your will. There is a man coming from the Middle East, ex-military. Your target is everyone.
They're not going to stop. Neither will I. I'm going to find every one of them. We've entered the realm of war, and I'm a soldier.
Who are you? Who are you working for?
Finish it.
Okay, now.
Loosen your sword.
Our job is to do what's right. An eye for an eye, yeah?
Whoa. So it turns out that when I work with high school students and show them this clip, we have a very vigorous discussion about who's the hero, who's the villain, and who's the victim. Some teens will say, oh, the hero is the white guy, right? Others will say, well, actually, maybe the guy who's the terrorist is actually the hero. And in fact, the ambiguity of this film, at least at the trailer level, leaves a lot of openness to interpretation. That ambiguity is designed to attract a mass audience, right? So who's the hero, who's the villain, and who's the victim is a simple way in to taking a look at how values are constructed through narrative. Now I'd like to take a look at another clip. In the clip we just saw, it was obvious that the violent extremism involved some kind of tension between the so-called West and the so-called Middle East, right? That was obvious. It was a classic kind of movie about terror. But now I'd like to show you a different representation of violent extremism, also from entertainment media, and I'd like, as you watch, you to think through who's the hero, who's the villain, who's the victim. Let's watch.
Women should not exercise judgment in political affairs.
If we allow women to vote, it will mean the loss of social structure.
Vote for women! Vote for women! Vote for women!
Thumbs up.
You work at the laundry?
Part-time from when I was 7, full-time from when I was 12.
We meet Mondays and Thursdays if you're interested.
You a suffragette, Mrs. Elliot?
I consider myself more of a soldier. As Mrs. Pankhurst says, it's deeds, not words, that will get us the vote.
We've identified weaknesses in their ranks. We're hoping one of them will break.
They're saying she's to speak.
This is a deliberate escalation. This has to stop.
For 50 years, we have labored peacefully to secure the vote for women. We've been ridiculed, battered, and ignored.
Punish those responsible, whatever way you can.
Mama! All my life, I've done what men told me. Well, I can't have that anymore. Took my love, took it down.
I incite the women in Britain to rebellion.
Can I sail through the changing ocean tides? Can I handle the seasons of my life? We break windows. We burn things, because war's the only language men listen to. Well, I've been afraid of changing.
There's nothing left but to stop you.
We're in every home. We're half the human race. You can't stop us all. Time makes you bolder, even
You might lose your life before this is over.
I'm getting older too. We will win. I take my love, take it down.
Never surrender. Never give up the fight.
In the snow-covered hill.
Whoa. This is a very sympathetic portrait of a violent extremist. This helps us see the violent extremist as herself a victim who is standing in the position of using violence as a means of last resort. We're invited to take a completely different perspective on the issue of violent extremism in this sympathetic portrayal of justified violence. Students at the high school level and college level have vigorous discussions about how this film is constructed to create sympathy for the terrorist. And that opens up conversations to think about sympathy for the terrorists today. That's a powerful learning experience for young people. Looking at violent extremism, how it's presented in entertainment media, and how it's constructed to activate our feelings. Now, the reality of it is we are in a culture right now where discourses of dehumanization are affecting how we think about and treat each other as human beings. And that's why it's important for the third educational strategy to recognize propaganda and hate speech. I was so proud to be able to develop this educational interactive. You can go take a look at it at mindovermedia.tv. Let me introduce it to you here.
Today, propaganda is inescapable. In a world saturated with media messages, propaganda can be found in information, news, advertising, or entertainment. And sometimes it's easily recognizable. Other times, propaganda can be subtle. Are you more powerful than propaganda? The Media Education Lab introduces Mind Over Media, an online platform for understanding 21st century propaganda. At this website, you can view and discuss examples of propaganda in print, video, or digital forms. You can exchange opinions about the potential benefits and harms of media messages. Log in to Mind Over Media by going to www.mindovermedia.tv. Mind Over Media.
So Mind Over Media is a crowdsourced gallery, which means anyone from any part of the world can upload examples of contemporary propaganda that they find on their Facebook, their Instagram, their social media, or on YouTube. So there are about 700 examples from all over the world right now. And when you get to the website, you're invited to rate the example of propaganda. Here's a political cartoon. How would you rate this political cartoon? Is this beneficial or harmful propaganda? You see it features Paris in the viewfinder, and then all those other countries somehow not getting attention. How about this one? When you watch this YouTube video, a video that discusses the problem of racism in Sweden by using satire, check it out. 17% of the people who came to the website thought it was beneficial, but 50% thought it was harmful. So how we understand propaganda, whether it's beneficial or harmful, really depends on our cultural backgrounds, our attitudes, and our points of view. Here's another one. A video basically from a media group comprised of foreign Islamic state fighters. Again, most of the people at our website found it harmful, but not everyone, right? So here's Zach and Alyssa. When they were responding to that example, they contributed their comment, right? And they're showing some evidence of appreciating the complex motivations that affect people to engage in terrorism. But when we think about propaganda and hate speech, we also need to open up that door to positive propaganda. Many of you in this room have been involved in creating positive propaganda. I certainly have in my work as an educator and professional communicator. Take a look at this one from Denmark, a very powerful
it's
piece
easy
of
to put
propaganda.
people in boxes. There's us, and there's them. The high earners, and those just getting by. Those we trust, and those we try to avoid. There's the new Danes, and those who've always been here. The people from the countryside, and those who've never seen a cow. The religious, and the self-confident. There are those we share something with, and those we don't share anything with.
Velkommen. Jeg kommer til at stille jer nogle spørgsmål i dag. Nogle af dem kan godt være lidt personlige, men jeg håber, I vil svare ærligt på dem. Hvem herinde i rummet var klassens klovn?
Who among us was the class clown?
Hvem er bonusforældre?
Who are step-parents?
And then suddenly, there's us. We who believe in life after death. We who've seen UFOs. And all of us who love to dance. We who've been bullied. And we who've bullied others. And then there's us, the lucky ones who've had sex this past week. We who are broken-hearted. We who are madly in love. We who feel lonely. We who are bisexual. And we who acknowledge the courage of others. We who have found the meaning of life. And we who have saved lives. And then there's all of us who just love Denmark. So maybe there's more that brings us together than we think. TV2 Denmark. All that we share.
So the power of communication and information have a tremendously beneficial role to play in helping address the issues of global cultural understanding and making the human connection. And when I've been at the Alliance of Civilization meetings, there's a lot of really important programs that are trying to build those bridges, like SOLIA. In fact, the ability for educators to form authentic relationships with people from other countries is embodied in a project that we did between middle school students in California and Turkey. We did it with no money at all. We did it by using a social media network that just let the kids talk to each other. The Turkish kids were learning English, the American kids were learning about social studies, and they exchanged hundreds and hundreds of posts asynchronously because of the time difference. They shared spontaneous information about each other's countries, and that built tremendous respect and trust and understanding. Other projects like the Civic Media Project, with that new book out from MIT Press, the Media Education for Equity and Tolerance Project, which has just been funded by the European Commission, and of course, your own Plural Plus initiative, a tremendously important project, as evidenced by this marvelous video. I'm just going to show the first minute here. Really using the power of communication to speak out about one's cultural reality and promote understanding through film. So film's power to humanize and make intimate the lives and lived experience of people is a tremendously valuable educational strategy that helps promote people's thinking about the power of image and language to affect the way we see each other as human beings. So now I've just identified the 5 instructional strategies that make media and information literacy a very powerful tool. I haven't talked at all about teacher education or information sharing. That's for another day, right? But I hope I've demonstrated that media and information literacy education advances critical thinking, reduces political polarization, and inspires civic engagement. That's because I think, as we all understand, the highest result of education is tolerance. Thanks very much for having me here today.
Thank you very much, Renee. We will now move to the